develop MVC architecture web application using Servlet JSP. When Servlet JSPs are there to develop MVC architecture, why we need frameworks to develop the same MVC architecture application? Okay, where exactly the Spring MVC, Spring Boot MVC falls under towards developing the web application. All right. So plan is very simple. MVC architecture is the best architecture to develop web application as a layered application. We can develop that architecture based application using Servlet JSP technologies and using frameworks. In Java, those MVC frameworks are Struts, Web JSF, Spring MVC, Spring Boot MVC. And as of now, market leader is what? Spring Boot MVC. MVC module, if you study in Spring Angle, Spring MVC. If you study in Spring Boot Angle, where you are going to enjoy some auto configuration, that becomes what? Spring Boot MVC. Is everything clear, guys? That's great. Okay. So let's start from 0%. What is Model 1, Model 2 architecture? Which is also called MVC, Model 2 architecture is also called MVC architecture. Yeah, a new module, but tune your brain to listen and develop web applications, nothing but websites. So for whatever you develop, they are standalone applications. Yes, guys. Tell me, class content. Then what next? Here is a Spring. Then 515 Spring Boot MVC. What is that, guys? Spring Boot MVC. Then tell me next one. Session-1. Okay. Where is Spring Boot MVC introduction? Right click, open with paint. Right click, open with paint. Yeah. Spring Boot MVC module provides abstraction on. Okay, we'll come to that later. Different modules of developing Java application. Models of developing Java web application. What are those models, guys? Model 1, Model 2. Model 2 is also called MVC. Yes. What is there in model? Here all logics will be placed in place either in what? Servlet component or in JSP component. Either in Servlet component or in what? JSP component. In this model of application development, if Servlet components are used as main components, then JSP components will not be used and vice versa. Vice versa means what, guys? Reverse also true. If servlets are used as main component, JSPs will not be used. If JSPs are used as main component, servlets will not be used. But in every component, all logics will be mixed up. If servlet is taken main component, in servlet only business logic, persistence logic, every logic will be kept, guys. Every main web component is like servlet JSP component contains what? Mix of multiple logics. So we can say there is no clean separation between what? Logics. This model 1 architecture is suitable only for what? Small scale web application development. What, guys? Small scale web application development like what? NareshIT.com. What is there, guys? NareshIT.com, Hyderabad. They are not for large scale, guys. E-commerce application, banking applications are large scale, right? Money is involved, security, multiple people will use simultaneously. So many other things are there. But these are definitely small scale applications, no doubt in that. Okay, in main components only, all logics will be mixed up. Surveys, business, everything. Okay, now look at MVC2, guys. I mean, it's a model to nothing but MVC. Here, multiple logics of web application will be developed using what? Multiple technologies by placing them in what? Multiple layers. Since multiple layers are there, we can say there is a clean separation between logics. What is there, guys? There is a clean separation between logics. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Super. M for model layer contains what? Business logic plus persistence logic. Okay, service class contains business logic. DAO class contains persistence logic. Both together we call as what? Model layer logics. V for view layer contains what? Presentation logic. Nothing but UI logics was. C for controller layer contains what? Monitoring logic. Nothing but what? Tracing activities. What activities, guys? Tracing activities. What activities, my dear? Tracing activity. Getting my point there or not there? M for model, V for view, C for what? Controller. Contains business logic plus persistence logic. Contains presentation logic. Contains monitoring logic. Okay, guys. Prefer this architecture to develop medium scale and large scale projects like e-commerce application, university application, bank applications and what, etc. Bank applications and what, etc. Are you getting my point there, guys? Okay, now listen. Servlet JSPs can be used to develop MVC architecture application, but Spring MVC, Spring Boot MVC are the frameworks who provide abstraction on what? Servlet JSP technologies and simplifies what? Application development process. Especially what application, guys? Web application development process. Especially what one? Web application development process. Getting my point? Spring Boot MVC or Web MVC module provides what? Abstraction on Servlet JSP technologies and web service framework. So we can use this MVC, Web MVC module to develop Java web application and Java distributed application, especially RESTful web service based distributed application. Okay, officially there is no REST module in Spring Boot, but the portion of web module that is given to develop REST web services based on distributed application is called what? REST module unofficially. Officially, there is no REST module, guys. A section of web module using which we develop what? Distributed application, nothing but RESTful web service is called this one. The conclusion is, using Spring Web module, we can develop both web applications and what? Distributed applications. Right, my dear? Spring Boot web module is equal to Spring Boot web MVC module. What module, guys? Okay, can be used for developing what? Web applications and distributed applications. What application, guys? For developing web applications and distributed applications. An enterprise application is combination of, can be a web application or a distributed application or combination of both. Flipkart with card payment, Flipkart with what? UPI payment. Different logics will be placed in different layers or classes and keep them in participating in what? Communication. Where, guys? In any web application or the enterprise application that we developed based on what? MVC architecture. We keep different logics in what? Different classes, different layers, and we keep them talking with each other or not there, guys? Okay. While developing web applications or distributed applications as the layered application. What applications, guys? Layered applications. That's really great, boss. Prefer this architecture to develop medium scale and large scale projects. I think you got the basic clarity, guys. Model 1, every logic in single servlet or JSP component. It's like a bachelor room. Okay. And MVC, 4 BHK or 3 BHK flat. Every room is having its own layered application. Already we developed mini project also in layered application. Super, guys. Now tell me, suitable technologies for model layer. What layer, guys? Suitable technologies for model layer. Java classes are Spring Beans are Spring Bean with ORM are EasyB component. EasyB is outdated, boss. Don't worry. EasyB is definitely what? Outdated. Or Spring Beans with the data JPA or Spring REST with what? Data JPA. Suitable technologies for what? UI layer. Suitable technologies for what? UI layer. Servlet or servlet filter, right? Yes. Suitable technologies for what? View layer. JSP, HTML, theme leaf, Angular or what? React. Initially we use JSP, but later we go for what? Angular or React JS integration, boss. No doubt. Angular or React JS what? Integration. Different popular architectures in Java are MVC, monolithic, SOA, microservice architecture. MVC, monolithic, SOA, microservice. MVC we are going to learn now. Already we developed a standalone MVC application. Okay, guys. Monolithic I'll introduce later. SOA I introduce SOA. Okay. And microservice. These are the architecture we have to study in future, boss. All services packed into what? Single unit. Both are what? In both architecture, all services will be packed into single one. SOA means service-oriented architecture. Okay, SOAP means is a protocol, a simple object access protocol, right? That's the level one. Model two is called MVC architecture. MVC architecture allows us to develop the web applications and distributed application as a layered application. The process of keeping different logics in different layers or classes and making them talking with each other is called as what? Layered application. Making them talking to each other is called as what? Layered application. Are you getting my point there, guys? Super. Instead of developing controller component as what? Normal servlet component or servlet filter component, it's recommended to develop as what? Front controller servlet component based on front controller design pattern. Okay, generally servlet we take as a controller, but instead of making it as a normal servlet as controller, you try to develop it as what? Front controller. That is some extra responsibility. All MVC projects of current trend are MVC with front controller. Basically layered application, come on. But one extra servlet will be there. Servlet will be there as a front controller, not just as a controller, front controller. Next, guys. MVC is not a design pattern. It is an what? Architecture to develop what? Layered applications in Java. While developing various layers and components in that architecture, we use multiple design patterns as what? Best practices. Generally, in the implementation of what? MVC architecture based web application, we can see the following design pattern implementation. DAO, service business delegate, factory, front controller, U helper, composite view, and etc. These design patterns we use in model layer development. Front controller we use in what? Controller layer development. These design patterns we use in what? View layer. That means architecture says end-to-end application development process. In that, while developing certain logic or certain layer logics, we will get some reoccurring problem. Addressing those problems, we go for some best solution. And these best solutions are called design pattern. And these best solutions are technically called as what? Design patterns. Are you getting my point there or not there? These best solutions are technically called as what? Design patterns. Convinced with me, my dear? Come on, everyone. Got the clarity you had, my dear? Come on. Okay. Architecture of the application talks about various components and layer in application development and their interaction among them. While developing each component or layer of any architecture, we follow a bunch of rules as best practices or design pattern to solve the reoccurring problems. What guys? To solve the reoccurring problems. First time when I modify, it is not shut it off. Good. Yeah. See, while constructing the building, I think I already discussed architecture is different, design pattern is different. While constructing building, building architecture will be there. Okay, on a certain height, the basement should be there. Certain height, roofing should be there. Width of the staircase, everything is decided, right? While implementing them, suppose while constructing the wall, some problems are coming. Addressing that problem, some solution is there. Only towards wall construction. That is called as what? Design pattern. What pattern, guys? Okay. So design pattern address pinpoint problem and their solution. Architecture address overall end-to-end flow of project development, process of application development. MVC is the layered architecture to develop web application. In that we use front controller, application controller, pattern in controller layer. We use view helper, composite view, design patterns in what? View layer. In different other layer, we use other design patterns. Are you getting my point? Yes. So final conclusion is what? MVC is an architecture in that while developing different layer logics, we take the support of different design patterns. We take the support of what? Different design pattern. What is this? Front controller. What is there? Front controller. The special web component of web application that acts as entry and exit point for all our multiple requests and responses is called front controller component. What component, guys? Front controller web component. Are you getting my point there, guys? Generally, one web application contains what? Only one front controller web component. That's great. We can take either servlet or servlet filter component or JSP component as what? Front controller. But servlet component is what? Recommended. It stands in the front, takes all the requests or multiple requests, and it delegates the request to appropriate component to process the request, like Java classes, service classes kind of. Collects the result and passes to the client. Client means browser. So it is acting as a front office counselor, front office receptionist or not. She traps your entry. Come on. And delegates your entry to different departments. Once work is completed, she also traps your exit, saying that sign there, here, all kind of thing. And then you will go to outside or not there. So front controller is like security guard in front of office or receptionists that are there in the office. They trap your entry, they trap your exit. They take care of common request processing activities. They take care of what? A common response generation activities. What do you say, guys? Yeah. A front controller web component traps either all requests or multiple requests. Applies what? Common system services performs navigation management, data management, view management, and lastly sends a response to the browser. System services are a common services, security, auditing, logging, this kind of common services will are called what? System services. Navigation management. Perhaps a request sends a write request to write service class for processing or not, guys. Write Java classes or write service class for processing. Okay, model management. And when service class generates the data, come on, it has to pass the data to view component for formatting the results or not, guys. The way it will pass the data is called as what? Data management, nothing but model management. Next, view management, guys. What do you mean by view management? I want reply, my dear. Come on. What do you mean by view management? I want reply, guys. View management is nothing but after getting the result, it has to send right result to right JSP or right view component boss. That is called view management. I'll put like this. System services. After trapping requests, the common services that are applied on what request are called as what? System services. Security, auditing, logging. Point number one completed. Point number two. Navigation management. Trap the request. It has to send the right request to write Java class, write DAO class for processing now, my dear. Navigation management, data management. In service DAO class, results are generated. They need to be passed to view component, JSPs for formatting. Okay, the way it passes data generated in the application to view component is called what? Model management. Sometimes along with the request also inputs will come, right? These inputs should go to what? Service and DAO classes for processing request. That is also called what? More data management, nothing but model management. View management. Service classes, DAO classes processed the request, generated the results. Come on. Right result should be passed to right view component. Right result should be passed to what? Right view component to format the results or not, guys? To definitely format the results or not, guys? Come on. That definitely needs what, guys? View management. Sending right result to right view component to format the result is called as what? View management. Convinced, my dear? Come on, everyone. Okay. System services, data management, view management, navigation management. Last six will be placed in front control. Execution from request to response will be under the control and monitoring of what? Front controller servlet component. If we use front controller DP in our project, we will be taking only one servlet component in web application. That is what? Front controller. Remaining all components, Java classes, who gets a delegated request from what? Front controller. Remaining all classes will be what? Java classes, who gets the request from what? Front controller, who gets the delegated request from what? Front controller. Everyone getting my point there or not there, guys? Super. MVC architecture plus front controller based what? Java web application. What is this? MVC architecture plus front controller based Java web application. Everyone convinced here, guys? Yeah, this is not a not official introduced. I'm assuming we know Servlet JSP and accordingly we are discussing. Check it out. This is browser. This is entire web application. Come on. Let us assume this is there in what? Deployed in server. What is this? Deployed in server. This is definitely deployed in server or not there? This is definitely deployed in the server or not there, guys? Okay, that's great. It's definitely deployed in the server. M for model layer, V for view layer, C for what? Controller layer. That is nothing but what? MVC. Model view controller. Model view controller. Are you getting my point there, my dear? Come on, everyone. Okay, M for model layer, view, C for controller, V for view, guys. Listen, in web application, what are there? Front controller is there. There is a service class for business logic, DAO class for persistence logic. But in between service and front controller, there will be what, guys? Handler class, also called controller class. This is normal Java class, guys. Come on. Handler class. Okay, this actually responsible collects the request from what? Front controller, delegates right request to right service class. That's why it is called handler class. Handling the request. That's why handler class. When it is front controller, it is just controller. That's why it is also called what? Controller class. Okay. This will just contain delegation logic. That's it, guys. No great logic. Business logic, persistence logic, and all navigation, data management, view management, system services, everything is there in what? Front controller. These are called view components are not there. Okay, now let's understand the flow, boss. Browser generates a request. Any request it is from browser, front controller traps and takes a request now, my dear. Generally, front controller is ready-made servlet. It's not user-defined, guys. It's a ready-made one. Let us assume. Okay, from there it will delegate the request to what? Handler class. Handler class will delegate the request to whom? Service class. Service class will pass us to whom? DAO. DAO will talk to whom? Database. Their query executes or not, guys? Super. SQL query execution results will be generated or not, guys? Okay, that's a DAO. Generated results come back to whom? Service. Service passes those results to what? Handler. Handler gives the results to whom? Front controller. Front controller passes the results to whom? View component. View component uses presentation logic to format the results or not, guys? Okay, now format the results comes back to whom? Front controller. Front controller passes the results to whom, guys? Browser. Browser will display them in browser as web page or not, guys? Browser will display them in web page as the web page or not, my dear? So final conclusion is what, guys? Okay. Front control is standing in the front and trapping the request, trapping the result, and taking care of all common activities or not. It's like security guard in front of office, traps your entry, checks your identity, traps your exit, checks your identity. Come on. Front controller standing in the front and controlling activities. Convinced or not, my idea? Super. Okay, guys. Browser generates the request, number one. Number two, front controller taps and takes the request. Number three, come on. Delegates the request to handler class. Okay. Number four, handler class talks with what? Service class. Service class talks with what? DAO class. DAO class sends and executes the query in what? Database software. Super. And SQL query results will come back, that is to DAO class. DAO brings the results back to whom? Service class. Service will bring the results to handler class. Handler will send the results to front controller. Okay, guys. Front controller. Front controller communicates with what? View component. So view component executes what? Presentation logic. And formatted results comes back to whom? Front controller. And front controller generates a result and sends the results to what? Browser. In the browser, they will be displayed as what? Web page. They will be displayed as what? Web page. Are you getting my point here, guys? Since the front controller servlet component should trap and take either all or multiple requests. So we need to configure front controller servlet component having what? Extension match URL pattern. Star dot do. And it will trap every request whose URL pattern is having dot do, right? Or directory match slash x slash y star. It will trap every request that is having x slash y in the URL. Lastly, anything can be there. But the best one, with the slash, it will trap all the requests. Come on. So I generally prefer taking slash as the URL pattern of what? Front controller. So that will trap all the requests and all the requests are not. If you take star dot do, it will trap only those requests whose URLs are having dot do word. If you take slash x slash y star, it will trap only requests whose URLs are having what? X and Y in the beginning, at the end, anything can be there, right? Okay, guys. With respect to MVC architecture web application, for one web application, how many front controller servlet will be there? One. How many controller or handler classes will be there? One, one per mod. How many service classes will be there? How many DAO classes will be there? One per table. We take 100 all, one per project, one per project. Controller or handler class, one per module. Service class, one per module. TAO class, one per DB table or one per related 3-4 DB table. 500 tables are there. 500 DAO means very problem, guys. That's why for 3-4 DB tables together, we'll take what? One. Are you getting my point there, guys? We already know these things. In Spring Boot layered application, we studied everything, right? Okay, what is the difference between front controller and controller or handler class? Look at this. This is handler class. This is a front controller. So front controller is a servlet trapping all the requests and responses. Handler class is a normal Java class taking the request from front controller. Okay. Containing delegation logic to send right request to right service class, my dear. Okay, next one. It also take care of exception handling part also. It also take care of what? Exception. Generally, we don't handle exception in DAO and service. We let them come to what? Handler class. In handler class, we catch and handle because it is not a standalone application to go to client application, right? So here we bring every exception to whom, guys? Handler class. In handler class, we try to catch and handle the exception or not, guys? In handler class, we try to catch and handle. Not. Okay. What is the difference between Front controller and what? Controller or handler class. Handler or controller class handles the request. By taking request from front controller, if service or DAO classes are not taken, then handler class itself process the request. Otherwise, it will delegate the request to whom, guys? Service DAO classes for request processing. Service DAO classes for what? Request processing. Handler or controller class handles the request by taking request from front controller. If service DAO classes are not taken, then the handler class itself process the request. Otherwise, it will delegate the request to whom, guys? Service DAO classes for what? Request processing. Front controller servlet component or handler class is called Java. Handler class. Front controller is servlet component, whereas what? Handler or controller class is what? Java class. Instead of and, we say whereas. We better say what? Whereas. Whereas handler or controller class is what? Java class. Front controller contains what? Navigation management, view management, data management, system service logics. Whereas controller or handler class contains what? Either business logic or delegation logic to service DAO class. Listen, small application, we don't take separate service and DAO. In what is there? Controller class itself, handler class itself, we try to process the request. That means there only we keep the business logic. It's a big application. Service DAOs will be there. In controller class, we keep the delegation logic. What logic, guys? Delegate. Front controller is one per web application, whereas controller or handler class is what? One per module. We take this one as what? One per module. Controller or what is there? Controller or handler classes. Controller or handler classes one per module. Everyone getting my point there or not there? So, what is the difference between front controller and what? Controller or handler class? Okay. Very simple, guys. Front controller traps and take all the requests, whereas handler class either process the request or delegates the request to whom? Service classes. Front controller is servlet component, whereas handler or controller class is Java class. Front controller contains navigation management, data management, and what? View management, system service logic. Okay, when it comes to handler class, either it contains business logic or delegation logics to service and DAO class. Front controller is what, guys? One per web application, whereas controller or handler class is what? One per module. We take one per module. Okay, guys? Need of limitations of MVC plus front controller architecture when it is implemented with the support of what? Servlet JSP technologies directly without using frameworks. That means I am not going to use any frameworks. I am going to develop MVC architecture application using what? Servlet JSP technologies. All the logics of all the layers must be developed what? Manually. That is extra burden to the programmer or not, guys? That is definitely extra burden to the programmer or not, guys? I want reply, my dear. Come on, everyone. Definitely that comes under what, guys? Extra burden to the programmer. Nothing. Super. We need to understand and implement entire front controller DP manually, which is quite complex process to perform, guys. Which is quite complex process to perform. We need to understand and implement entire front controller DP manually, which is quite complex to perform because we have to develop front controller on my own. For that one, you should understand complex front controller design pattern are not there, guys. Okay. That means entire lot of burden on the programmer because he has to develop all layer, all logic. Front controller implementation is bit complex, but he has to do it, right? Okay, because no ready-made in Servlet JSP, no ready-made servlets. In frameworks, we have ready-made servlets. All the rules of MVC architecture should be remembered and implemented manually. Should be remembered and implemented manually. Are you getting my point there? Should be remembered and implemented what? Manually. Yeah, tell me. The rules are every layer is designed to develop specific logic. So place only those logics. Don't place what? Additional logics. Place only those logic. Don't place any additional logics. I know how to write JDBC code in JSP. Control. JSP for view presentation logic. Don't place JDBC code. JDBC code should be there only in DAO class. I know how to write business logic in JSP. Again, control. Business logic should be there in what? Service layer on, which is a Java class. Are you getting my point there? Discipline life. I know how to sleep in the afternoon. Control. You have to sleep only in the night hours. No, sir. I can wake up midnight, 3 o'clock. Okay, you can, but according to discipline life, you should go to bed at max by 10, in worst case 11 o'clock. Because you need 6 to 7 hours of sleep for healthy life, right? So 11 o'clock, if you sleep, you will get up by what? 6 o'clock. 7 hours sleep is completed, right? Are you getting my point? And those are my day starts, my actual active life starts at 11 o'clock only. Then your karma. Then your karma. No one is responsible for your karma, right, guys? Every layer application, every layer is designed to develop specific logic. So place only those logics. Don't place what? Additional logics. There can be multiple view components, multiple model component, but there should be only one front controller servlet component. There must be only what? One front controller servlet component. Is it not interesting, my dear? Come on. Super, guys. Tell me. All operations and flow of executions must take place through what? Front controller servlet. Must and should take care through what? Front controller servlet. Agree with me, my dear? Come on, everyone. Super, guys. All operations and flow of execution must take place through what? Front controller servlet. Okay. Need of web server or application server in web application or web service development. In web applications or what? Web service development. I hope you are getting my point there, guys. Come on, everyone. The standalone application is specific to one computer and will be operated by one user at a time. So application will be started manually, will be stopped by manually. And here I am trying to present in the development and execution of web application, we take the support of Tomcat kind of server that is called web server. We take the support of Tomcat kind of server that is nothing but web server or not, guys. That is seriously nothing but web server or not. I want reply, boss. Okay. Sir, why we need web servers in web application? Why we don't need web servers in standalone application? So forget about this diagram and all this stuff. Concentrate, guys. Okay. Standalone application is specific to one computer, will be operated by one user at a time. So it can be started manually, na? It can be stopped manually. Is there any need of automatic execution? Because specific to one user. At a time, one user will operate. Perfect, my dear. Okay, that's great. Second one, my dear. Web application will be deployed in what? Web server. Why? Web application will be requested by one user or lots of users. These lots of users can use simultaneous requests. At a time, 1 crore to 2 crore request also make up. Gmail, Google kind of thing, Amazon kind of thing, right? Possibility is there or not there? There, possibility. Can I think about taking these requests and processing these requests manually? One by one execution of web components is going to work out? No. There should be a mechanism receiving the request 24 by 7, assigning the request to appropriate web components 24 by 7, executing the web components dynamically. Come on. Gathering the result and passing the results to browser as web pages dynamically. There should be a software to take care of all these things. Indirectly, we should think about what? Automating web application and its web components execution, my dear. Automating web application and its what? Web components execution. What do you say, guys? Come on, everyone. Okay. Web application and its what? Web components execution. We must think about automating the whole process or not, guys. For that one, we need a special software, and the special software is nothing but what? Web server software. Array, daily 10 people are coming in your company. You want to take attendance. So you'll try to take attendance manually by keeping on registry. Because 10 people now, boss, it's easy to take manually. Suppose yours has become Reliance kind of big company or big organization, 1 lakh employees are there, different shifts are there, different location they are working, but you want to track of attendance, guys. So then definitely one or other biometric software you have to install or not, guys. Some people will do field jobs only. They never come to office to check where they are going, whether they are going or not. Yes or no, na, guys? To check where they are going, whether they are really going or not. So in there, they need to install one application in the mobile, right? So tracking should be there or not there. Otherwise, marketing people says, I have gone there, gone here, but they never go anywhere. They take rest and they take salary at the month, right? So that's why some tracking is required or not. That needs automation software support or not, guys. Web application is not for one user, one request. It's for lots of users generating lots of requests. Yes, I'm one idea. Come on. The standalone application is specific to one computer and will be operated by one user at a time. So application will be started manually and will be stopped manually. No automation is required. No automation is required. That's great. The web application is nothing but a website. Guess what? 24 by 7 request. What request, guys? 24 by 7 requests from clients of different locations. So we cannot think about executing web components of web application manually. For that, we need to use what? Special piece of software that automates every activity of web application and its web components execution. Web application and its what? Web components execution. Okay. That special software is nothing but what, guys? Okay. Web server software or not, guys? Web server. Web application, nothing but website 24 by 7. This one. We cannot think about web component. For that, we need to use special software that automates what? Web components execution. Okay, that special software is nothing but what, guys? Web server software. That special software is nothing but web server software. That the special software is nothing but what is there? Web server software. Super, guys. Example web server, Tomcat, Jetty, Jonas, Undertow, and etc. This is my example web server are not there. Super, boss. Application server is equal to what is there? Web server plus plus. WebLogic, WebSphere, Wildfly, Glassfish, and etc. Yeah. This is my web server surrounded with what? Application server. Super. Up to Tomcat 6, it's a web server arm, my dear. Come on, everyone. Up to Tomcat 6, web server or not, my dear. Come on, everyone. Super, boss. Okay. But Tomcat 7 onwards, it is called what? Application server. Are you getting my point? Yes. Web server is piece of software that automates what? Web application and its web components execution. It listens to client requests continuously, takes request, maps the request to write web component of web application, executes the web component, nothing but Servlet JSP, dynamically, gathers the result and sends the results to browser as what? Responses. Convince it with me, guys. Every web server or application server software gives what? Built-in containers like Servlet container, JSP container, and etc. Tomcat web server servlet container name is what? Catalina, and JSP container name is what? Jasper. I hope you convinced guys why we need web server in the execution of web application and distribute application. Standalone application is designed by keeping one computer, one user in mind, whereas web applications, distributed applications are not designed by keeping one user, one application in mind. Lakhs of users will be there. Crores of requests will come dynamically. Are you getting my point there, guys? So for that, you need automated software. See, you look at any website, nighttime, daytime, anytime you give request, it is responding or not yet. More request, it is responding. Less request, it is responding. What do you say, guys? It's really happening or not, guys? While developing MVC architecture-based front controller DP application using Servlet JSP, we need to take care of multiple logics in multiple players manually by following lots of MVC rules. Especially development of front controller servlet component is very much complex process or not, guys? To overcome problems on Servlet JSP based MVC architecture application development, take the support of what? MVC frameworks to develop MVC plus front controller based Java web application. Okay, that means don't develop by using Servlet JSP technologies. Prefer working with what, guys? Prefer working with what, guys? MVC plus front controller based Java application. Convinced, my dear? Come on, everyone. Yeah, what is there? Struts from Apache. JSF from Sun Microsystem or what? Oracle Corporation. Spring MVC from Interface 21. All these are MVC frameworks to develop what? MVC architecture based application. Spring Boot MVC from Interface 21. Tapestry from Adobe. ADF from Oracle Corporation. ADF is from what? Oracle Corporation. But Spring Boot MVC is number one. Okay. After that, big popularity is there for what? JSF. Actually, Spring or Spring Boot MVC one and the same, guys. That's why both together I am calling number one. Number two is JSF. Remaining all are there for namesake, don't worry. JSF is nothing but Java server phases. ADF is nothing but what? Application Development Framework. Advantages of developing MVC web application using what? Java MVC frameworks. What frameworks, guys? Java MVC frameworks. Are you getting my point there or not there, guys? Advantages of developing MVC web application using Java framework. These MVC frameworks use ready-made front controllers are taking care of what? We are trying to understand. While developing some MVC architecture application with the Servlet JSP, some problems are there. Addressing this problem, we have come up with frameworks. What are the advantages of developing same web application by using what? Frameworks we are trying to understand. And nothing is there. Earlier, we used to develop the website using Servlet JSP technologies. There are some problems with those technologies. We understood those problems. And we are trying to solve those problems by using what? MVC frameworks or not, guys? Super. Those MVC frameworks give ready-made front controller servlet taking care of multiple logics, right? Front controller you need not to develop. We have a ready-made servlet in these frameworks. That means biggest headache in MVC architecture application development is front controller servlet development. When someone says you need not to develop it, it is a ready-made one, it's going to be very, very interesting or not, guys? It's really going to be very, very interesting or not, my dear? Come on. Instance action servlet is what? Built-in front controller servlet. Are you getting my point? Action servlet is what? Built-in front controller servlet. In JSF, faces servlet is what? Built-in front controller servlet. In Spring MVC, dispatcher servlet is what? Built-in front controller servlet. In Spring Boot MVC, same. Dispatcher servlet is what? Built-in front controller servlet. Why same? Spring Boot MVC is the extension of what? Spring MVC. Everyone getting my point? If any module is implemented in Spring style, that is called what? Spring module. Spring MVC, Spring Data, JPA, and etc. If any module is implemented in Spring Boot style, that is called what? Spring Boot module. Spring Boot MVC, Spring Boot Data, JPA, and etc. Are you getting my point? Super. Yeah, this is number one. What is there? Number one. Provides abstraction on Servlet JSP technologies and simplifies MVC architecture based web application development or not, guys? I already said Spring MVC is a framework. Frameworks provides abstraction on technologies and simplifies application development process or not, guys? Definitely simplifies application development process or not. I want reply. Okay, next one. See, flow of execution, navigation management is what? Fixed. According to the logics placed in what? Front controller servlet. So developer need not to bother about flow of execution. Front controller is ready-made, na? That means navigation management logics are already decided. That means flow is already decided. Come on. So you need not to worry about flow of execution or not, guys. Because the ready-made front controller servlet take care of what? Navigation management logic. The predefined front controller contains logics already satisfying what? MVC rules and guidelines. So programmer need not to remember and implement those what? Rules manually. More programmer need not to remember and implement what? Those rules manually. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Come on, everyone. Super. Gives good productivity in application development. More work can be done in what? Less time or not, guys? Yeah, look at the advantages. Number one, front controller is ready-made. So maximum logics are already there or not there. System services already there. Navigation management already there. Model management, model means data, already there. Next, what is the next one? View management already there. So a lot of advantages there, ready-made one. Next one, navigation management logic is ready-made logic. So flow is already decided, flow is fixed. So we just need to add our classes, our components, our files satisfying that flow. So biggest headache gone or not there. Already MVC rules are implemented now, my dear. Say something, boss. Already MVC rules or principles are implemented or not, guys? Already MVC rules or principles are what? Implemented. That's good. Good productivity. If 40% logics are already there, flow is fixed. Okay, so definitely programmer feels very lightweight while developing the project or not, guys. Burden on the programmer is definitely reduced or not, guys. Okay, now tell me, in Spring MVC, Spring Boot MVC application, who is ready-made front controller servlet? Speak out, speak out, speak out. Online students, you are also there in the classes. I am not seeing single response from you people nowadays. Are you there or not there? Ammaya, first message of the day came. Maybe you might have typed, I have not seen. Okay. Dispatcher servlet is what? Ready-made front controller servlet, right? Okay. We don't develop it. It is already there. Where? In the jars that we add. How many jars represent Spring Boot MVC, guys? 2 jars. Spring web version dot jar. Spring web MVC version dot jar. These two things represents what, guys? Jar file. These two things definitely represent what, guys? Jar file. It is a Spring MVC supplied ready-made servlet component. Once we add Spring Boot Starter Web, we get lots of jar files related to what? MVC module like Spring web jar, Spring web MVC version dot jar, etc. In that, Spring MVC jar file contains what? Ready-made dispatcher servlet component as a front controller servlet component with the URL pattern slash. What, guys? With the URL pattern slash. Convinced, my dear? Front controller is ready. It's already configured with what? Slash URL pattern. Come on, my dear. It is given as front controller servlet having ready-made navigation logics, view management logic, data management logic. It decides the data flow, right? In MVC application, we need to configure this servlet explicitly with the servlet container having directory match or extension match URL pattern or global URL pattern slash. Because MVC in Spring Boot MVC application, it is automatically registered with what? Servlet container having slash URL pattern, also enabled with what? Load on startup. See the beauty. In MVC application, Spring MVC application, no Spring Boot. We should explicitly configure a dispatcher servlet, though it is what? Predefined. Having extension match or directory match or slash. We prefer slash. Moreover, enabling load on startup manually is your job. But in Spring Boot, servlet ready-made, its configuration with the servlet container having slash URL pattern is done already. Come on. Having what? Slash URL pattern is also done already. Come on, my dear. Last one, tell me. Last one, tell me. I want reply, my dear. Okay. It is automatically enabled with load on startup. Anything that is common Spring Boot is taking care of on there. Sir, I understood. Slash advantage as the URL pattern. What's the advantage of slash? It will trap all the requests and responses. What is the advantage of load on startup? Listen. That's an important servlet. If that object is created during the deployment or during the server startup itself, by that time web application get the first request. Servlet is very much ready now, boss. By that time web application gets what? First request. I can say servlet component is very much ready now, my dear. Come on, I want reply, guys. Come on, I want reply, my dear. Come on, convinced with me or not, my dear? If we enable load on startup on servlet component, the servlet container creates the object for servlet component class either during server startup or during the deployment of web application. This is called instantiation of or eager instantiation of servlet component. Pre-instantiation or what? Eager instantiation of servlet component. Pre-instantiation or eager instantiation of what? Servlet component. What is there, guys? Hot deployment. What is another one, guys? Cold deployment. Deploying the web application when server is in running mode is called hot deployment. Server is all that is called hot. Server is in stopped mode. First I deployed it, then I started server. Then it is called what? Cold deployment. What deployment, guys? Cold. Spring Boot MVC application is automatically registered with what? Here it is means what, guys? From dispatcher servlet. Here it is means what? Dispatcher servlet. Okay, can I say something, guys? In Spring Boot MVC, dispatch servlet ready-made, automatically enabled with slash URL pattern. That means traps request and response. Automatically enabled with load on startup. That means you deploy the application, you start the server. Okay, servlet, dispatch servlet is instantiated and initialized or not, guys? That means the first it's the important servlet and very much ready before I give first request or not, guys? You do any kind of deployment, hot or cold, before I give first request, dispatcher servlet is ready because it is enabled with what? Load on startup. It is definitely enabled with what? Load on startup. Are you getting my point there or not there? Okay, now listen. I'll read these points later. What actually happens? I deployed a Spring MVC application in the server. Number one. Number two. Load on startup is enabled now, boss. Dispatch servlet is loaded, instantiated. That is called pre-instantiation of servlet, not Spring Bean. Servlet itself pre-instantiated. Number three, in that process, initialization of dispatcher servlet takes place. Init method executes. Here is the magic. Init method execute. Number three. Number four, this init method contains the logic to create IOC container. Here no client application, somewhere IOC container has to be created or not. Yes. This IOC container takes the configuration class or configuration file. There also some Spring Beans are there. Some of them through @bean method, some of them through what? Stereotype annotation. Okay, again, those beans will be pre-instantiated Spring beans, injected with each other, and all those objects will be kept in what? Internal cache of the IOC container. Come on, guys. All those objects will be kept in what? Internal cache of the IOC container. What do you say, guys? Happening or not happening, boss? In the internal cache of the IOC container, I want reply from you people. Okay. So that means what happened, guys? The moment I deploy Spring Boot MVC application or Spring MVC application, dispatcher servlet is ready, IOC container is ready, Spring Beans are instantiated, injections are done, they are kept in internal cache of the IOC container or not there. That means before I get the first request only, all beans are ready, all Spring Beans are ready, servlet components are ready. So first request can directly concentrate on what? Taking the request and processing the request without wasting time in what? Loading the classes, creating object, injecting one object with another object, because already they are done. Is it not an interesting aspect, my dear? Is it not an interesting aspect or not, my dear? Come on, everyone. Okay, guys. Because load and startup enabled on the servlet container creates dispatcher servlet class object either on what? Deployment on the deployment of web application or during server startup. Okay. That's the number one. The init method of dispatcher servlet executes, which internally creates what? IOC container of type web application context. This web application context container performs what? Pre-instantiation of singleton scope Spring Beans like container or handler classes, service classes, DAO, data sources, handler mapping I'll introduce later, view resolver and etc. Perform necessary dependency injection and keeps them in what? Internal cache of the IOC container or not, guys. This process keeps all the objects ready in the deployment itself. This process keeps all the objects ready in the deployment itself. Are you getting my point there, guys? Okay. Okay. Spring Boot MVC predefined dispatch servlet will be registered with the servlet container using programmatic approach using sc.add servlet. In that process, dispatcher servlet gets what? /URL pattern and automatically enabled with load on start or not, guys. Come on, guys. My theory and practical is managed or not, guys. One note. Only standalone application contains main method. In standalone application, we create IOC container in main method. In web application, does not contain main method. The dispatcher servlet take care of what? Creating IOC container in those web application. Convinced or not? In web application, we don't create IOC container. That will be created automatically inside the init method of the dispatcher servlet as part of servlet initialization or not? Dispatcher servlet initialization or not, my dear? Come on. In Spring MVC application, dispatcher servlet view components, nothing but JSPs are taken care by servlet JSP containers, whereas controller handler classes, service classes, DAO classes, handler mapping, view resolver and etc. are Java classes acting as what? Spring Beans, who will be taken care by whom? Dispatcher servlet created dispatcher servlet created IOC container. That means the IOC container that is created by whom? Dispatcher servlet will take care of remaining Java classes that are acting as a Spring Bean or not, guys? Okay. Dispatcher servlet uses handler mapping. I used one uses handler mapping component as helper component to pick up right handler method of handler class for request processing. Nothing is there. Handler class is there. We are having some methods. Which request should go to which method of handler class will be decided by handler mapping component or not, guys. Super. Dispatcher servlet uses what? View resolver component as what? Helper component as the right view component for formatting the results. As the right view component for formatting the results. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Come on. Super, guys. Super, guys. Yeah. This is handler mapping component. This is my what? View resolver component. This is my view resolver component. This is my view comp. Handler mapping component is helper component to pick up right handler method in handler class. View resolver component is helper component to pick up what? Right view component. What component, guys? Right view component. Okay, that's great. All web application must be deployed in what? Web server or application server, like Tomcat, WebLogic, Wildfly, and etc. to make them accessible 24/7. Web server or application server listens to client request continuously, takes the request, maps the request to web components of web application, executes the web components dynamically, gathers the results, and sends them to browser as what? Responses. This is my web server or application server, my dear. Come on, everyone. This is my web server or application server. Observe very carefully. Listen. Web server or application server. This is servlet or JSP container. All of them will run on JRE JVM. This is my Spring MVC web application. Concentrate. JSP dispatcher servlet managed by servlet JSP container. Look at the black color dots, guys. Come on. Handler mapping, view resolver, DAO, service controller classes. These are Java classes acting as what? Spring beans. Managed by IOC container. And who is creating this IOC container? Dispatcher server. Convinced, my dear? Yeah, DS means dispatcher servlet. I repeat. This is a web server having servlet container and JSP container. All of them will run on JRE JVM. All of them will run on simply on what? JRE JVM. That's great. Okay, now come on, everyone. Will run on what? JRE JVM. Now focus, guys. Dispatcher servlet JSP component are managed and executed by servlet JSP containers. Super. DAO service controller classes, handler mapping and view resolver component are managed and executed by whom, guys? IOC container. But this IOC container is created by whom? Dispatcher servlet. Servlet container is managing dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet creates what? IOC container. Servlet container is managing IOC container indirectly. Dispatcher servlet IOC container manages what? Spring beans like handler classes, service classes, DAO classes, and etc. JSP container, which internally uses servlet container, manages what? JSP component. But instead of calling servlet JSP container separately, we call it as what? Web container. What, guys? Web container. Web container is nothing but servlet container plus JSP container. Got it, guys? How many ways are there to configure or map servlet component with what? Servlet component. Three approaches are there. Alright. To make servlet container identifying servlet component class, three approaches. Declarative approach. What approach, guys? What do you mean by declarative approach? We are going to configure servlet component with the support of what? Web.xml entries. What entries, guys? web.xml entries. Super. Annotation approach at the rate web servlet. Okay, third approach. Programmatic approach or dynamic servlet registration approach. SC dot add servlet. When it is useful, I will tell. You take Spring Boot MVC. Will I allow XML? No. Dispatch servlet is predefined or user defined? Predefined. Can I add annotation on the top of dispatcher servlet by editing its source code? No. But dispatcher servlet should be configured or not, guys. I cannot use XML. I cannot add at the rate web servlet. First two approaches are ruled out now. What is the last approach that is left, guys? Dynamic registration of the servlet. Come on. I don't know whether you studied or not in servlet JSP classes. Servlet can be configured with the servlet container by using sc dot add servlet method. What method? Sc dot add servlet method. Spring Boot MVC application uses Spring Boot MVC application uses approach 3, nothing but programmatic approach. What approach, guys? Programmatic approach. To register dispatcher servlet with what? Servlet container. Come on. Having URL pattern slash and by enabling what? Load on startup. And also by enabling what? Load on startup. Everyone understanding my statement or not there? Say something, my dear, or not there? Super, guys. Okay, but how to go for this programmatic registration? I think long back I have given one video. If not given, today I will give one video. Actually, it's a discussion of servlet JSP. I think I have given dynamic servlet registration. Other day, along with MVC to architecture, I have given this video if I am not wrong. Watch this. How third approach can be used to register servlet programmatically, you will understand, right? Okay. Why, sir? In Spring Boot MVC, can we entertain XML? No. Not possible. Can we entertain